The sky over New York had turned the color of rust. Jake Morrison stood on the roof of the Earth Defense Coalition headquarters, watching the clouds swirl with toxic orange and brown. The air tasted like metal even through his filtration mask. Below him, the streets were empty. Most people had already retreated to the underground shelters, waiting for the end. It had started 6 months ago with a single accident. A fusion plant in Indonesia had malfunctioned, triggering a chain reaction across the global energy grid. The explosions released chemicals into the atmosphere that nobody had predicted would interact the way they did. Within weeks, the air became poison. Within months, the damage was irreversible. Every scientist on Earth agreed on one thing. Humanity had less than a year before the atmosphere would no longer support human life. 11 billion people, and nowhere to go. The moon colonies could hold maybe 10,000. Mars had room for 5,000 more. The generation ships they had been building for deep space exploration were decades away from completion. Jake had read the reports. He knew the math. Humanity was going to die, and there was nothing anyone could do about it. His communicator buzzed. "Captain Morrison, you need to come to command right now." Jake took the elevator down 30 floors. The command center was chaos. Screens flickered with data streams, and every officer was shouting into their headset. General Patricia Cole stood at the center of it all, her face pale. "Tell me something good," Jake said. Patricia pointed at the main screen. "We have visitors." The image showed a structure near Jupiter. It hadn't been there yesterday. It was massive, a ring of silver metal that seemed to bend space itself. Energy rippled across its surface like water. "What is it?" Jake asked. "A gateway. It opened 2 hours ago, and something came through." The screen changed to show a ship. It was elegant, built from materials that seemed to glow with their own light. The design was unlike anything human engineers had ever conceived. It moved without visible propulsion, gliding through space as if the laws of physics were merely suggestions. "They sent us a message," Patricia said. "Audio only. Want to hear it?" Jake nodded. A voice filled the room. It was calm, measured, and spoke perfect English. "People of Earth, we are the Valori. We have watched your world for many years. We know of your crisis. We have come to help if you will accept our assistance." The room fell silent. "Is this real?" someone whispered. Patricia looked at Jake. "They're asking for a meeting. They want to send a representative to Earth. Someone needs to go up and escort them down. I'm sending you." 24 hours later, Jake floated in the docking bay of the International Space Station, watching the Valori ship approach. It was smaller than the main vessel, but still impressive. The airlock cycled and the door opened. The Valori who stepped through was tall, maybe 7 feet, with skin that shimmered like pearl. Their eyes were large and dark, filled with something that looked like kindness. They wore robes that seemed to shift colors as they moved. "I am Kellen," the alien said, extending a hand. "Thank you for meeting with me, Captain Morrison." Jake shook the offered hand. It was warm, surprisingly human. "Thank you for coming. Though I'll be honest, we're all wondering why you're here." Kellen's expression was hard to read, but Jake thought he saw sadness there. "Because you need help. And because we remember what it was like to face extinction. Someone helped us long ago. We survived because of that kindness. Now we pass it forward." They brought Kellen to Earth, to a sealed meeting room in Geneva where the leaders of every nation had gathered. Kellen stood before them and explained. The Valori were old, millions of years old as a civilization. They had survived their own disasters, their own near extinctions. Other species had helped them, taught them, given them the knowledge to survive. For thousands of years, the Valori had done the same for others. They traveled the galaxy, watching young civilizations, and when those civilizations faced moments like this, the Valori came. "We have atmospheric processors," Kalen said, "machines that can filter and repair your air. We have genetic treatments that will help your bodies adapt to the changing environment while the repairs take place. We have the technology to save your world." The President of the United States asked the question everyone was thinking. "What do you want in return?" Kellen looked surprised. "Nothing. We ask for nothing." "That's impossible," someone said. "Nobody gives something for nothing." "We do," Kellen replied, "because that is what civilization means. The strong help the weak, the old help the young. We give because one day you will have the power to give to others. When that day comes, we hope you will remember us and do the same." Dr. Lisa Bennett was assigned to work with the Valori science team. She was a climatologist, one of the best on Earth, and even she couldn't fully understand the technology the aliens brought. The atmospheric processors were miracles of engineering, machines the size of buildings that could clean the air for hundreds of miles around them. The Vylori deployed them across the planet. 100 machines placed strategically on every continent. Within a week, the air quality began to improve. Within a month, people could breathe without masks in some areas. Within 3 months, the toxic clouds started to break apart. Jake spent those months working alongside Keelan. The Vylori ambassador was patient, answering every question, explaining every process. He taught Jake about their civilization, their history, their philosophy. "We have seen so many species die," Keelan said one evening, as they watched the sunset from the roof of the Geneva facility. The sky was pink and orange now, natural colors returning. "We have watched worlds burn, civilizations collapse. Sometimes because of disasters they couldn't control, sometimes because they destroyed themselves. We cannot save everyone. But when we can help, we must try." "Why?" Jake asked. "What makes it worth it?" Keelan smiled. "Because every civilization that survives adds something new to the galaxy. Every species that continues brings new ideas, new art, new ways of thinking. Humanity has such potential. We see it in your music, your literature, your stubborn refusal to give up even when all hope seems lost. The galaxy would be poorer without you." 6 months after the Vylori arrived, Earth was healing. The air was clean again. The atmospheric processors hummed quietly, maintaining the balance. The Vylori had also shared other gifts: medical technology that cured diseases humans had struggled with for centuries, fusion reactor designs that were more efficient than anything Earth had developed, and the basic principles of faster-than-light travel. On the day the Vylori prepared to leave, Keelan met with Jake one last time. "We're going home," Keelan said. "Your world is safe now. The processors will run for centuries without maintenance. You have the knowledge to build more if you need them." Jake felt something heavy in his chest. "How can we ever repay you?" Keelan placed a hand on Jake's shoulder. "You already have. You welcomed us. You worked with us. You trusted us. That is enough. But I will tell you this, remember us. Remember what we did here. And when you have the power, when you have the technology and the reach, help others the way we helped you. That is how you repay us, by passing the gift forward." The Vylori ships left through their gateway, and the gateway collapsed behind them. Humanity was alone again, but not the same as before. They had been saved. They had been given a second chance. And they had been given a mission: to remember and to help others when the time came. Jake Morrison kept Keelan's words in his heart. He knew that one day humanity would have the chance to repay the debt. He just didn't know it would come sooner than anyone expected. 50 years had changed everything. The Earth that had nearly died was now a garden world again, more beautiful than it had been in centuries. The Vylori atmospheric processors still hummed across the continents, but now human engineers understood how they worked. The factories on Luna and Mars produced new ones, improved versions that humans had designed themselves. Alex Carter stood on the observation deck of the Horizon Dawn, watching Europa pass below. The ice moon was covered in domed cities now, home to 3 million people. Humanity had spread across the solar system like seeds taking root in new soil. Mars had 15 million colonists. The asteroid belt was full of mining stations. Even distant Titan had settlements, their lights visible from orbit. "Captain, we're ready for the jump," said his first officer, Lieutenant Maya Rodriguez. She was young, only 26, but she had the best reflexes Alex had ever seen. When they traveled faster than light, those reflexes mattered. "Take us out," Alex said. The Horizon Dawn was an exploration vessel, one of 20 that Earth had built using the principles the Vylori had shared. They weren't as advanced as Vylori ships, but they could cross light years in weeks instead of centuries. For 5 years, Alex and his crew had been mapping the nearby star systems, looking for habitable worlds and searching for signs of other intelligent life. They had found both: dozens of worlds that could support human life and 6 different alien species. Some were friendly, like the Thryn, who looked like walking trees and spoke in musical tones. Others were hostile, like the Kresh, who attacked any ship that entered their territory. Most were somewhere in between, cautious but willing to talk. 3 years ago, humanity had been invited to join the Galactic Assembly. It wasn't a government exactly, more like a meeting place where different species could trade information, negotiate disputes, and share discoveries. The Assembly had existed for thousands of years, and it included over 100 member species. That's where Alex had first heard the name Valori spoken by others. Every species in the assembly knew of them. The Preservers, they were called. The ancient ones who traveled the galaxy, saving dying civilizations. The Thrinn said the Valori had cured a plague that would have killed their entire species 800 years ago. The Zinthari said the Valori had given them the technology to terraform their dying moon. Story after story, species after species, all telling tales of Valori kindness, but nobody had seen the Valori in years. Their last appearance at the assembly had been 3 years ago. Their home system, in a distant cluster of stars, had gone silent. No ships came out. No messages went in. It was as if an entire civilization had simply vanished. Alex had brought this information back to Earth, but there wasn't much anyone could do. Valor Prime was 60 light-years away, and the route there passed through dangerous territory. The assembly had sent 3 scout ships to investigate. None had returned. Now as the Horizon Dawn jumped into a new system, Maya's board lit up with alerts. "Contact," she said. "I'm picking up a signal on Valori frequencies." Alex leaned forward. "That's impossible. We're nowhere near their space." "I know, but I'm definitely reading a Valori transmission pattern. It's weak, fragmentary, like it's been bouncing around space for months." "Can you clean it up?" Maya worked her console, her fingers flying across the controls. The static resolved into words, broken and desperate. "Under siege. Multiple hostiles. Need assistance. Primary systems failing. To any who receive this. Remember what we, then nothing. Just empty static." Alex felt his heart hammering. "How old is that message?" "Based on the signal degradation, I'd say it was sent about 4 months ago. It's been bouncing off stellar bodies, getting weaker with each reflection. We're just lucky we were in the right position to catch it." "Can you trace it back to the source?" Maya nodded slowly. "Valor Prime. Captain, this is a distress call. The Valori are in trouble." Alex looked at his crew. His chief engineer, Kyle Patterson, was already pulling up star charts. Dr. Sophie Grant, their xenobiologist, looked shocked. The rest of the bridge crew waited for his orders. Jake Morrison had told Alex stories about the Valori. About Kellen, who had stood before the leaders of Earth and asked for nothing in return for saving 11 billion lives. About the atmospheric processors that still kept Earth alive. About the knowledge that had allowed humanity to reach the stars. The decision was easy. "Set course for Valor Prime," Alex said. "Maximum speed." Kyle looked up from his console. "Captain, that's 60 light-years through uncharted space. Some of those systems are claimed by hostile species. It'll take us 6 months, I know. But 50 years ago, the Valori crossed the galaxy to save us. They didn't ask if it was convenient. They didn't calculate the risk. They just came. Now it's our turn." Maya grinned. "I'll send a message back to Earth. Let them know where we're going." "Tell them everything," Alex said. "Tell them the Valori need help, and tell them to send everyone they can." The Horizon Dawn turned toward the distant stars and jumped into the darkness. The journey was long and dangerous. They passed through 3 systems claimed by the Kresh, avoiding patrol ships by running silent. They mapped 2 uncharted nebulas that interfered with their instruments. Kyle worked miracles keeping the engines running at speeds they weren't designed for. Sophie spent the trip researching everything humanity knew about the Valori. It wasn't much. They were ancient, powerful, and peaceful. They had technology that seemed almost magical. They had saved hundreds of species over thousands of years. But they had enemies too. Species that resented their interference or coveted their technology, or simply hated them for being so powerful. "Do we know what we're flying into?" Maya asked one night in the mess hall. Alex shook his head. "No idea. Could be a natural disaster. Could be a war. Could be something we've never seen before. And we're doing this anyway. We're doing this because they would do it for us." "They did do it for us," Maya smiled. "Good, I was hoping you'd say that. Because I've been thinking about what Kellen told Jake Morrison, about passing the gift forward. I think this is what he meant. 5 months into their journey, they received a response from Earth. It was short. Message received. Help is coming. Don't do anything stupid until we arrive." Alex laughed. That sounded like Admiral Cole. Patricia had been a general when the Valori saved Earth. Now she was an admiral in charge of Earth's entire defense fleet. If she was coming personally, she was bringing everything Earth had. On the 6th month, they reached the edge of Valori space. What they found made Alex's blood run cold. Ships floated dead in the void. Dozens of them, maybe hundreds. Valori vessels, their elegant hulls torn open, drifting without power. Some had been there for months. Others were more recent. All of them were lifeless. My God, Maya whispered. Kyle's scans showed energy signatures around Valor Prime itself. Something had built a barrier around the planet, a field of force that covered the entire world. Nothing was getting in or out. There, Sophie said, pointing at the screen. Those ships. I don't recognize the design. The vessels were different from anything in the assembly databases. They were angular, built from dark metal that seemed to absorb light. They moved in perfect formation, patrolling the barrier like guards. Maya ran the sensor data through the computer. I'm picking up strange readings from those ships. They're partly organic, partly machine, like someone merged living tissue with computer hardware. Can we get a message through the barrier? Alex asked, not without announcing ourselves. And Captain, those patrol ships have weapons, big ones. Alex stared at the screen at the graveyard of Valori ships floating in the dark. Somewhere below that barrier, the species that had saved humanity was trapped. Dying. Waiting for help. Send a tight beam transmission back to Earth, Alex ordered.
Tell them what we found.
Tell them to hurry. He looked at his crew. They looked back at him with trust and determination. The Valori saved us when we had nothing, Alex said. When we were about to die, they came and asked for nothing in return. Now they're the ones who need saving. I don't care who's down there or what weapons they have. We're not leaving until we get our friends back. The Horizon Dawn settled into a distant orbit, watching and waiting. Help was coming. Earth was mobilizing. And somewhere on the planet below, the Valori were holding on, hoping someone remembered them. Someone did. Humanity never forgot. The Horizon Dawn drifted in the shadows of a dead moon, running on minimal power. For 2 weeks, Alex and his crew had watched the barrier around Valor Prime, studying the patrol patterns of the strange ships that guarded it. Every day brought new horrors. More Valori vessels would approach the barrier, trying to break through. Every time the Guardian ships would destroy them with weapons that tore through shields like paper. Kyle had captured scanner data from one of those attacks. What he found made everyone on the bridge go quiet. These ships, Kyle said, bringing up the analysis on the main screen. They're called the Jakari. At least that's what the computer translates their identification codes as. They're not like anything we've encountered before. Sophie leaned closer to study the data. They're hybrids. Part machine, part organic tissue. The ships are grown as much as they're built. That's not the scary part, Kyle continued. Watch this. He played back footage of a Jakari ship approaching a damaged Valori vessel. The Jakari ship extended tendrils of metal and flesh that pierced the Valori hull. Lights flickered across both ships as data streamed between them. They're stealing information, Sophie said. Downloading everything from the Valori computer systems. Not just downloading, Kyle corrected. Absorbing. They take the technology, the knowledge, everything, and integrate it into their own systems. They're assimilating the Valori piece by piece. Maya pulled up the barrier readings again. That energy field around the planet uses Valori technology, but it's been modified. The Jakari must have stolen it and adapted it. They're using Valori knowledge against them. Alex stared at the planet below. Somewhere down there, billions of Valori were trapped, watching their civilization being slowly consumed. The greatest helpers in the galaxy, the ones who had saved hundreds of species, were now the ones who needed saving, and they were running out of time. How long do you think they have? Alex asked Sophie. Sophie pulled up her analysis. She had been studying the Jakari data streams, trying to understand their methods. What she found was systematic and terrifying. Based on the data transfer rates, I estimate the Jakari have already extracted about 70% of Valori scientific knowledge. They're being methodical about it. First, they took all the information from the ships in orbit. Now they're working on the planetary databases. When they reach 100%, they'll have no reason to keep the Valori alive. How long? Alex pressed. Maybe 6 months, maybe less. The bridge was silent. Earth's fleet was still 2 months away. Even if Admiral Cole pushed the ships to their limits, they wouldn't arrive in time. We need to get down there, Alex said. We need to find a way through that barrier. Kyle shook his head. Captain, that barrier is generating power levels we can't match. The Horizon Dawn's weapons wouldn't even scratch it. And if we try, those patrol ships will tear us apart. Then we don't use the front door, Maya said. She pulled up a scan of the barrier, highlighting a section near the planet's north pole. Look at this. The barrier isn't perfect. There are fluctuations in the field strength, tiny gaps that open and close as the generators cycle. They only last a few seconds and they're small, but a shuttle might be able to slip through. Might being the important word, Kyle said. If the timing is off by even a fraction of a second, the shuttle would be torn apart. Can you do it? Alex asked Maya. She studied the data, her fingers tracing the pattern of fluctuations. Then she smiled. Yeah, I can do it. 3 hours later, a small shuttle detached from the Horizon Dawn. Maya was at the controls with Alex beside her. Sophie sat in the back, surrounded by equipment. They had one chance at this. If they failed, the Jakari would know someone was trying to help the Valori, and the barrier would be strengthened. Maya flew the shuttle toward the barrier, watching her instruments with total focus. The gap she had identified appeared every 17 minutes, lasting exactly 3.4 seconds. She had to hit it perfectly at exactly the right angle and speed. 60 seconds, Maya said. Alex gripped his seat. Through the viewport, he could see the barrier now, a shimmer of energy that bent space itself. Beyond it, Valor Prime looked beautiful. The planet was covered in silver cities that sparkled in the sunlight. But there were dark patches too, places where the cities had gone dim. 30 seconds. Sophie checked her equipment one more time. She had brought every scanning device they had. If they made it through, they needed to learn everything they could about the Jakari occupation. 10 seconds. Hold on. Maya's hands moved across the controls with perfect precision. The shuttle accelerated, racing toward a point in space that looked no different from any other. Now, they hit the gap exactly. For a fraction of a second, Alex felt the universe twist around them. Energy crackled across the hull. Alarms screamed. Then they were through, diving toward the planet below. We made it, Maya breathed. We're inside the barrier. Alex looked back and saw the barrier seal shut behind them. They were trapped now, cut off from the Horizon Dawn, but they were also where they needed to be. They flew low, skimming the atmosphere, using the planet's curvature to hide from Jakari sensors. Sophie's scans showed massive harvesting stations in orbit, connected by tendrils of technology to the planet's surface. The Jakari were literally draining Valor Prime of everything it knew. There, Alex said, pointing at a city on the coast of a silver ocean. That's where the distress signal originated. Take us down. The city was damaged. Buildings had collapsed. The elegant architecture the Valori were famous for was scarred and broken. But there were still lights in some structures. Still signs of life. Maya landed the shuttle in a plaza surrounded by tall towers. As soon as the ramp lowered, Alex saw them. Valori, dozens of them emerging from the buildings. They looked different from the images in Earth's archives. Thinner, weaker, exhausted. But their eyes still held that same kindness Kellen had shown Jake Morrison 50 years ago. One of them stepped forward, tall even by Valori standards. They wore robes that had once been beautiful but were now torn and stained. I am Ambassador Kalen, the Valori said, and Alex's heart skipped a beat. You came. After all these years, you came. Alex stepped forward and offered his hand, the way Jake Morrison had described. Kellan took it, and Alex felt tears in his eyes. You saved us, Alex said. 50 years ago, you saved 11 billion humans. You asked for nothing, but you told us to remember. We remembered. Kellan's large eyes were wet. When the Jakari came, we thought no one would answer our call. We have saved so many species, but we never asked them to return the favor. We never expected anyone to help us. Then you don't understand humanity very well, Alex said. You saved us. That means your family. And we don't abandon family. Sophie was scanning the area, her face grim. Captain, I'm reading Jakari technology everywhere. They've tapped into the city's power grid, the communication systems, everything. They're extracting data continuously. Kellen nodded sadly. They arrived 2 years ago. At first, we thought we could fight them. But their technology adapts. Everything we threw at them, they absorbed and used against us. They built the barrier using our own shield technology. They trapped us on our own world. How many Valori are left? Alex asked. 4 billion on this planet. Perhaps 1 billion more scattered across our colonies, all cut off from each other by Jakari blockades. We are dying slowly, Captain. Our resources are depleted. Our weapons are useless. Every day, they take more of our knowledge. When they have everything, they will eliminate us. Alex pulled out his communicator and switched to the secure channel. Kyle, do you copy? Static answered him. The barrier blocked all transmissions. We can't contact our ship, Alex said to Keelan. But they know we're here. And more ships are coming. A whole fleet from Earth. Other species too, probably. Everyone you ever helped is going to remember. They're going to come. Do you have enough time? Kellen asked quietly. The Jakari will finish their harvesting in less than 6 months. Then we'll just have to hold out until help arrives, Alex said. Can you show us these harvesting stations? We need to understand how they work. If we can disrupt them, maybe we can buy more time. Kellen led them deeper into the city to a tower that still had power. Inside, Valori scientists worked at consoles, desperately trying to find some way to fight back. They showed Alex the scope of the Zakari operation, dozens of harvesting stations in orbit, each connected to planetary databases. Millions of years of Valori knowledge, flowing upward into Zakari ships. Sophie studied the data streams, her mind racing. There has to be a weakness. Every system has a weakness. An older Valori scientist looked at her with tired eyes. We have searched for 2 years. We have found nothing. The Zakari adapt to everything. Then we'll find something they can't adapt to, Sophie said. We'll find something they've never seen before. Alex looked out the tower window at the darkening sky. Somewhere beyond that barrier, the horizon dawn was waiting. Somewhere beyond that, Earth's fleet was racing toward them. And somewhere in all of this, there had to be a way to save the species that had saved humanity. They had 6 months to figure it out. The clock was ticking. Admiral Patricia Cole stood on the bridge of the Defender, Earth's largest warship, and watched the fleet assemble. 300 vessels hung in space around her, everything humanity could muster. Cruisers, destroyers, carriers, and frigates. Every military ship that could be spared, plus dozens of armed civilian craft whose captains had volunteered the moment they heard about the mission. It was the largest fleet Earth had ever assembled. And Patricia knew it wouldn't be enough. The Zakari had technology centuries ahead of humanity. The reports from the Horizon Dawn made that clear. But 50 years ago, the Valori hadn't calculated the odds before coming to save Earth. They had simply come. Now it was humanity's turn to ignore the impossible. Admiral, we have incoming ships, her communications officer said. Multiple contacts, not human. Patricia's display lit up with new signatures. Ships were appearing all around them, emerging from faster-than-light jumps. But these weren't hostile. These were allies. The first to arrive were the Thrin. Their vessels looked organic, grown rather than built, covered in bark-like armor. 400 ships materialized in formation, and their musical voice came across the communication channels. We heard the preservers need help. The Thrin remember. 800 years ago, the Valori saved us from the Black Plague. We come to repay that debt. Next came the Korvathi, whose angular ships bristled with weapons. They were a warrior species, proud and fierce. Their commander's voice was gruff but sincere. The Valori ended our civil war when we were too blind to stop it ourselves. They saved billions of Korvathi lives. We bring 300 ships and our shield technology. It is the least we can do. The Zenthari arrived with their medical vessels, white ships marked with symbols of healing. Their representative spoke softly. The Valori gave us the knowledge to terraform our dying moon. An entire world lives because of their kindness. We come with supplies and support. One by one they came. The Draal, whose crystalline ships shimmered in the starlight. The Vox, whose species the Valori had saved from extinction. The Tan, the Krivor, the Zenith. Species after species, each with their own story of how the Valori had helped them, each bringing everything they could spare. Patricia watched her tactical display fill with contacts. 300 human ships became 600 total ships, then 800, then 1,000. Species that had never fought together before. Species that barely knew each other, all gathering for one purpose. Commander Helen Brooks, Patricia's tactical officer, was coordinating with the alien commanders. It was chaos. Different communication protocols, different tactical doctrines, different levels of technology. But Helen made it work, building a command structure that incorporated everyone's strengths. Final count, Admiral, Helen said. 2,147 ships from 17 different species. It's the largest military coalition in recorded history. Patricia felt a chill run down her spine. The Valori had spent thousands of years helping others, asking for nothing in return. Now when they needed help, the galaxy had answered. On Earth, Jake Morrison watched the fleet depart on the news feeds. He was old now. 104 years. His body kept alive by Valori medical technology. When he heard about the mission, he had done something crazy. He had volunteered. The doctors said he was too old. The military said he was a civilian. Jake had looked them in the eye and said, "I met Kalen." I shook his hand. "He saved my world. I'm going to be there when we save his." They gave him a berth on a medical ship, one of the support vessels traveling with the fleet. The journey would take 2 months at maximum speed. Jake spent those months talking to other volunteers, other people who remembered the Valori. There were thousands of them spread across the fleet. Engineers who had studied Valori technology, doctors who had learned Valori medicine, ordinary people who just wanted to help. The fleet traveled through jump space, that strange realm between normal space where faster-than-light travel was possible. Helen used the time to drill the combined forces, running simulation after simulation. The plan was audacious and probably suicidal, but it was the best chance they had. The Jakari barrier around Valor Prime was too strong to break from the outside. But if they could overwhelm the Jakari forces, if they could keep them busy, strike teams could slip through the gaps Maya had discovered and reach the planet's surface. From there, they would have to disable the harvesting stations from within. Sophie Grant had transmitted data about a potential weakness in the Jakari systems, something about their computer networks being vulnerable to certain types of interference, but the data was incomplete. They would have to improvise once they engaged the enemy. Inside the barrier, Alex and his crew had been working with Kellen and the Valori scientists for 6 weeks. They had learned more about the Jakari than they wanted to know. The hybrid species had conquered 12 other civilizations before coming to Valor Prime. Each time, they assimilated the knowledge and moved on, leaving dead worlds behind. "They're like a plague," Sophie said, studying the Jakari data patterns. "They consume everything and give nothing back." "The opposite of the Valori," Kellen said quietly. "We give everything and ask for nothing. Perhaps that is why they targeted us. We have the most knowledge to steal." Maya had been monitoring the barrier, watching for any sign that help was coming. On the 47th day, she saw something. A massive energy surge beyond the barrier, like hundreds of stars suddenly appearing. "Captain," she said, her voice shaking, "they're here." The combined fleet dropped out of jump space at the edge of Valori space. Patricia stared at the tactical display, at the graveyard of Valori ships floating dead in the void, at the barrier surrounding Valor Prime, at the Jakari patrol vessels moving in perfect formation. "All ships. This is Admiral Cole," Patricia broadcast to the entire fleet. 50 years ago, the Valori saved Earth when we were dying. They asked for nothing in return. They just helped because that's what civilizations do for each other. Today, we return that favor. Today, we show the Jakari that the galaxy protects its own. All ships attack formation. Let's bring our friends home. The fleet moved forward as 2,000 ships accelerating toward the barrier. The Jakari responded immediately, their vessels swarming out to meet the threat. Weapons fire lit up space like lightning. The battle began. Human railguns hammered at Jakari shields. Thrin bioweapons dissolved enemy armor. Korvathi energy cannons punched through hulls. The Jakari fought back with weapons that adapted and changed, using stolen Valori technology. Ships exploded on both sides, their crews dying in silence. But the combined fleet kept coming. When the Thrin carrier took critical damage, human destroyers formed a protective screen around it, sacrificing themselves to let the crew evacuate. When the Korvathi shields started failing, Centauri medical ships rushed in to pull survivors from dying vessels. Species that had never fought together before moved like parts of a single organism, protecting each other, covering each other's weaknesses. Helen coordinated the chaos from the Defender's bridge, routing ships, calling targets, adapting the strategy in real time. She saw the pattern in the Jakari defenses and exploited every gap. "Strike teams, you have an opening," Helen broadcast. "Move now." A dozen small ships broke from the main fleet and raced toward the barrier. They hit the gaps Maya had discovered, slipping through in those precious seconds when the field cycled. Most made it. 2 didn't, their hulls torn apart by energy feedback. The ships that made it through headed for the harvesting stations in orbit. Alex watched them come from the surface, his heart pounding. The cavalry had arrived. Jake Morrison was on one of those ships. The medical transport he'd been assigned to had been reclassified as a strike vessel when they needed more ships for the surface assault. Now, at 104 years old, Jake found himself wearing combat armor and holding a weapon, descending toward the planet where it had all begun. The landing was rough. Jakari defense systems fired at them, and the pilot had to dodge through a storm of weapons fire. They crashed more than landed, the ship tearing a gouge through a Valori plaza. Jake stumbled out of the wreckage, his old bones protesting. Other survivors gathered around him, human and alien both. They had one mission: reach the main harvesting station and shut it down. And there, waiting for them in the ruins of the city, was Alex Carter and his crew. Behind them stood hundreds of Violori, ready to fight for their homeworld. Alex saw Jake and froze. "Commander Morrison? What are you doing here?" Jake grinned, feeling young again despite his ancient body. "Finishing what we started 50 years ago. Now where's Kellen? I've got a promise to keep." Kellen stepped forward, seeing Jake for the first time in 5 decades. Recognition flickered in the Valori's eyes. "Captain Morrison, you came back." "I told you we'd remember," Jake said. "Humanity never forgets a debt. And we never abandon family." Above them, the battle raged in space. Around them, the Jakari closed in, trying to stop the assault teams. But on the ground, in the ruins of a city on a planet far from Earth, 2 species that had saved each other stood side by side. The fight for Valor Prime had truly begun. The battle for Valor Prime lasted 3 days. 3 days of continuous fighting that would be remembered across the galaxy for generations. In space, Admiral Cole's combined fleet clashed with the Jakari forces in a grinding war of attrition. Ships died by the dozens on both sides, their hulls torn open, their crews lost to the void. But the fleet held. When Thrin vessels were damaged, human ships covered their retreat. When Korvathi shields failed, the Draal moved in to support them. The Jakari had superior technology, but the combined fleet had something more powerful. They had a reason to fight that went beyond survival. They were fighting for the species that had saved them all. On the ground, Alex led a strike force toward the main harvesting station. It was a massive structure, built by the Jakari using stolen Valori technology, its tendrils reaching deep into the planet's core to extract data from every computer system on the world. Jake Morrison moved with the group, his old body struggling but his spirit unbreakable. Kellen walked beside him, along with hundreds of Valori who had armed themselves with whatever weapons they could find. They weren't soldiers. They were teachers, scientists, artists, but they were fighting for their home. Sophie had been analyzing the Jakari systems non-stop since they landed. As they approached the harvesting station, she made a discovery that changed everything. "I found it," she said, pulling up data on her portable console. "The weakness. Captain, the Jakari systems are incredibly advanced, but they have one critical flaw. They're too advanced." Kyle looked confused. "How can something be too advanced?" "Their computer systems are so complex, so interconnected that they can interface with anything. They automatically try to connect with any technology they encounter, to analyze it and absorb it. It's how they assimilate other species' knowledge so quickly." "And that's a weakness, how?" Alex asked. Sophie smiled. "Because our technology is primitive. Our computer systems are basic compared to Valori or Zakari technology. When the Jakari systems try to interface with our computers, they expect sophisticated defenses, complex encryption. They're not prepared for systems as simple as ours. It's like using a master key designed for the most advanced lock in the galaxy, but the door only has a simple latch. Can we exploit that?" Maya asked. "I think so. If we can get to the harvesting station's central processor and connect one of our computers directly to it, we might be able to inject a virus. The Zakari defenses won't recognize it as a threat because it's too simple. By the time they realize what's happening, it'll be too late." Jake laughed, the sound rough but genuine. "So humanity's backward technology is actually an advantage?" "That's the most human thing I've ever heard." They pushed toward the harvesting station through waves of Jakari defenders. The hybrid soldiers were terrifying, part flesh and part machine, adapting their tactics in real time. But the combined force of humans and Valori was determined. They had lost friends to get this far. They weren't turning back. Captain Lauren Hayes commanded one of the other strike teams fighting their way to a secondary power station. Her team was half human, half Korvathi, and they moved with brutal efficiency. The Korvathi taught the humans their shield techniques. The humans taught the Korvathi how to be unpredictable. Together they were unstoppable. In space, the tide of battle was turning. The Jakari had adapted to most of the fleet's tactics, but they couldn't adapt fast enough to counter 17 different species, fighting 17 different ways. Patricia Cole saw the pattern and pressed the advantage. All ships concentrate fire on the barrier generators, she ordered. We need to bring down that barrier. The combined fleet focused their weapons on 3 massive structures orbiting Valor Prime. They were the generators maintaining the barrier, and they were heavily defended. But the fleet hammered at them relentlessly. Thrin bioweapons ate through the armor. Human railguns shattered the support structures. Korvathi energy beams carved into the power cores. One generator exploded, then another. The barrier flickered. Keep firing, Patricia shouted. On the surface, Alex's team reached the harvesting station. It loomed above them, a nightmare of twisted metal and organic tissue. Jakari defenders poured out to stop them, but they were too late. Kyle blasted open the station's entrance with explosives. Maya provided covering fire with precision that bordered on supernatural. Sophie ran inside, carrying a standard human computer that looked like a toy compared to the massive Zakari systems around her. The station's interior was alive. Cables pulsed like veins. Processors hummed with stolen knowledge. Sophie could see data streams flowing upward, carrying millions of years of Violori civilization into Jakari ships. There, Kalen said, pointing to a central processor. That's the primary hub. If we can shut that down, the entire harvesting operation will collapse. Sophie approached it, her hands shaking. This was it. Everything depended on this moment. She pulled out a data cable and connected her simple human computer to the Jakari processor. For a second, nothing happened. Then the Jakari system did exactly what Sophie predicted. It tried to interface with her computer, to analyze and absorb its contents. But instead of finding complex Valori databases, it found something much simpler. A virus written in basic code that the Jakari defenses didn't recognize as a threat. The virus spread through the system like wildfire. Alarms blared. Lights flickered. The data stream stuttered and stopped. It's working, Sophie breathed. The harvesting has stopped. In orbit, the third barrier generator exploded. The energy field surrounding Valor Prime collapsed. The barrier was gone. Patricia saw her opening. All ships full assault. Break through and support the ground teams. The fleet surged forward. Jakari ships tried to stop them, but now they were outnumbered and outmaneuvered. Human vessels dove through the gaps, followed by Thrin carriers and Korvathi destroyers. The space around Valor Prime became a furball of fighting ships. Alex heard the roar of engines overhead as friendly ships entered the atmosphere. Reinforcements were arriving, but the Jakari weren't finished. Their soldiers poured into the harvesting station, trying to stop Sophie from completing her sabotage. Jake Morrison stood at the entrance, his weapon raised. He was old, tired, and scared, but he remembered the day Kellen had come to Earth. He remembered the moment humanity had been saved. That memory gave him strength. Nobody gets past us, Jake said to the humans and Valori around him. We hold here until Sophie finishes. They held. Humans and Valori fought side by side, defending the entrance against waves of Jakari soldiers. Ships overhead provided fire support, blasting Jakari positions. Slowly, desperately, they held the line. Sophie worked frantically at the console, expanding the virus through the entire Zakari network. It was spreading to the orbital stations, to the patrol ships, even to the Jakari vessels in space. Their systems were crashing, their weapons failing, their shields dropping. Almost there, Sophie said. Just a few more seconds. A Jakari soldier broke through the defenses, heading straight for Sophie. Jake tried to stop it, but his old body was too slow. The soldier raised its weapon. Kellen threw himself in front of Sophie, taking the blast. The Valori ambassador fell, his robe smoking. No, Jake shouted, shooting the Jakari soldier. Alex rushed to Kellen's side. The wound was bad. Valori medicine was advanced, but this was beyond anything they could treat in the field. Kalen looked up at Alex, his large eyes peaceful. Did she finish? Sophie's computer beeped. Done. The virus is in every Zakari system. They're shutting down. Good, Kellen whispered. You kept your promise. You remembered. You're going to be fine, Alex said, but he knew it was a lie. I am fine, Kalen said. I am better than fine. I got to see the species we saved become the species that saved us. That is worth everything. Jake knelt beside his old friend, tears streaming down his face. We couldn't have done it without you. Humanity wouldn't exist without you. And we would not exist without humanity, Kellen said. That is how it should be. We help each other. We save each other. That is what civilization means. Medical ships were landing outside, Zinthari doctors rushing in. But they were too late. Kalan smiled one last time and closed his eyes. In space, the last Jakari ships were retreating, their systems crippled by Sophie's virus. The battle was over. The combined fleet had won. The cost was staggering. Over 600 ships destroyed. 40,000 casualties from 17 different species. The human fleet had lost 35% of its vessels. But they had done it. The Valori were free. Patricia stood on the bridge of the Defender looking at the casualty reports, feeling the weight of every lost life. But when she looked at the planet below, she saw Valori cities lighting up again, saw their ships beginning to move, saw a civilization coming back to life. 3 months later, the Galactic Assembly held a memorial service for all those who had died in the battle. Representatives from every species that had fought gathered on Valor Prime, in a plaza that had been rebuilt from the ruins. Jake Morrison stood before them, speaking for humanity. He was weaker now, the battle having taken its toll on his old body, but his voice was strong. 50 years ago, the Valori saved us. They gave us everything and asked for nothing. When they were in danger, we came to help them. Not